Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. So today I wanted to start doing something that I've been thinking about for a while, and that is I want to start doing mid-month chats where I talk about some of the things that I'm currently reading, some of my monthly favorites, or other things that I wanted to chat about and maybe share with you, and some Invisible Cities things that I'm getting up to over the month, as well as what I'm knitting. Knitting, aside from reading, is probably my biggest interest. Knitting, reading, and music is probably my three biggest interests when it comes to time, the time I spend on them. And there's some overlap with those interests as well, of course. But I have really been wanting to share more of my knitting projects, and I thought that having a chat in the middle of the month that isn't connected with my wrap-up, because with wrap-ups it's always already so much to talk about. So I have an opportunity to share with you what I'm currently working on and what I'm currently reading, as well as Invisible City stuff that usually gets left out as well in my wrap-ups, because I do usually try to watch some movies or listen to some music or other things related to Invisible Cities that I don't get a chance to share with you otherwise. So this is probably going to be kind of a mishmash of things, and I want to start doing this every month. We'll see how it goes, and maybe I can think of a better title for this than just a mid-month chat. But that is the idea behind this, so hopefully this is the first in a series of many to come. So first of all, I wanted to talk about some recent favorites, or some recent highlights, I should say. One of the things that I have started doing this month that I don't know why it took me almost 1.5 years of the pandemic to start doing is to attend digital meetings with authors. So this month I signed up for a Zoom event with Nina Powell's and Jessica J. Lee. They were in conversation on Zoom. It was free, and it was about an hour, I think, in the beginning of September, and they just chat about various things, but particularly about small bodies of water and things related to nature writing, things related to being mixed race. And it was really fun for me because I read my first Jessica J. Lee book in April, Turning by her, and really liked it, and then went on to read her other book, Two Trees Make a Forest, in June. And of course I read Small Bodies of Water in July, so it was an interesting combination of two authors that I'd read for the first time this year and really connected with. And I think they add something new to the nature writing genre, so it was really interesting to hear their conversation. And then this week, Nina Powell's did a Instagram live with Pema Monaghan, I think. They again talked about small bodies of water, as well as things related to being mixed race and writing as a mixed race individual and writer, and what parts of your identity that you center your writing on. They talked about several other things, including what Ghibli movies they love. And again, it was a fantastic live, and I'm so glad that I discovered these things and realized what fun it is to watch authors talk live and talk about the things they care about and what their writing process is like, their interests outside of writing and books. I felt like both talks were really rewarding to listen to, and I have also signed up for another talk with Jessica J. Lee at the end of the month, where she will be talking with someone else about the form of nature writing, the genre, and how it's changing. So again, obviously something that I'm really interested in, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I would just generally strongly recommend, if there's a contemporary author that you're really interested in, see if they have any digital talks that you can join in, because I feel like it's one of those things, I don't know why it took me so long to investigate. So related to, as I said, the Instagram live with Nina Powell's and Pema Monaghan, they talked a little bit about Studio Ghibli and their movies. And one of the things that I actually have done in September is to rewatch some Studio Ghibli movies. Something that I had really meant to do in January. For Invisible Cities, we did Japan for January, but it didn't happen, and I continued to think about this project and wanting to do it, but it just never happened. And in the beginning of September, I rewatched Howl's Moving Castle, which is not just my favorite Ghibli movie, but also one of my favorite movies of all time. And when I had rewatched that, and of course loved it, it just spurred me on to continue with that project. So now I have rewatched Howl's Moving Castle, Kiki's Delivery Service, Whisper of the Heart, Cat Returns, Princess Mononoke. I think I will just continue doing that in the rest of September. I feel like they're also very, very comforting for me, and probably very good for sort of early autumn days. Something that you can definitely settle into. Something else that I've watched this month is Becoming Martian, I think it's called. It is a documentary series of 3 episodes, and I watched this because I was reading The Red Planet by Simon Morden. I'll talk more about it in my September wrap-up. But it is a nonfiction book about Mars, what it's like, what we know about the planet, and all of that. And I found it difficult to visualize some of the things that I was reading and to grasp it. It felt so foreign to me. So in order trying to understand what I was reading, I was looking for some Mars documentaries to watch alongside, to sort of attack my brain from different angles, just to try to make sense of what I was reading. And watching various Mars documentary clips and reading the book was really a really fun part of the beginning of this month. But Becoming Martian was the best of the documentary things that I watched. I particularly liked the first episode, I think. Some of the documentaries that I watched or tried to watch had kind of annoying narration going on, and so this one was good in that respect as well. But if you have any recommendations for Mars documentaries or planet related stuff, like space related stuff, particularly our solar system, anything related to that, if you have any recommendations for documentaries, please let me know. But that was something that I really enjoyed exploring in September. My last random recent favorite is this LP, this record, Harry James, his Trumpet and Orchestra, Songs That Sold a Million. I got a record player for my birthday last year, and that was something that I'd been wanting for such a long time, and it's one of those things that whenever I feel like I have time and I want to sit down and kind of more actively listen to music, that is usually what I turn to. Although I listen to a lot of music just through my stereo system or through my phone or my computer, listening to a record is something different. I feel like it has this tangible aspect to it that I find very comforting and calming and fun, I would say. So as soon as I got the player, I started to collect secondhand records. This one that I got, I think, in August, and that is probably my favorite from my most recent acquisitions. It has Autumn Leaves on it, which I love, and I've discovered that I really love trumpet playing. So I think there was something about this musician particularly that really stood out to some of the things that I've been listening to. Usually when I buy records, I either go by the artist, already being familiar with the musician, or with the type of songs I'm seeing, like jazz classics. And this one was kind of that. I went with recognizing some of the songs themselves, but this was a new discovery for me in terms of a musician. Onwards to my knitting. So I have been knitting Arctic Spring, which is a pattern by the petite knitter. I will link her Instagram and Ravelry store below. And as soon as I saw this pattern, I think right before it was released in August, I knew that I wanted to get it, and then I pretty much immediately ordered yarn for it. So the yarn that I've been using is Rama Norwegian wool, I think. This is the petrol colorway. So the actual pattern is, let's see if I can hold it up, is this. So it's a stranded colorwork yoke sweater. And I am very new with color work. So as you can probably tell, I have some tension issues that I'm hoping blocking is gonna settle for me or fix. But I am just now working at the rib at the edge of the sweater. So after that, when I've finished the edge, I will move on to the sleeves. So I can't tell if you can see anything now. Hopefully you can see something. But yeah, so that is the pattern that I started working on in mid-August. And I found that I don't love working color work if it's color work like this with an actual pattern. I think I would probably be fine with stripes because it's no different really. You just switch the thread. But with doing color work like this, when you have to switch in the middle of the round constantly, I found that kind of difficult with the tension and difficult to find a position with my hands that was comfortable to do over a longer session, and it felt more clumsy for me. And when I got over that section and just did the plain stockinette stitch, I found it kind of boring to knit. So I feel like this is the type of pattern that I like the look of it. The instructions for this pattern was really good, really clear, and the chart as well was really clear. So I really like the pattern itself, but I haven't loved knitting this type of pattern. I am definitely more of a cable knitter, so but I do really like the look of it, and I wanted to have the patrol with the rust type color and white. I think it will be kind of a nice color to have in the colder seasons for something that stands out a bit. So yeah, so that is what I've been working on when it comes to my knitting. Now on to my currently reading section of this video. So first up we have Katalin Street by Magda Szabo, translated by Len Wicks. I am buddy reading this with Sara from Hardcover Hearts. We buddy read Abigail by this author in the spring, and both of us really loved that book. We have also both previously read The Door Not Together, so this is our third Magda Szabo book and our second buddy read. And it's a joy to read this with her. We always have such fun, and I feel like I always feel enriched by our conversations from our buddy readings, so that is really fun, and the book itself is great. I think Szabo is probably one of my favorite writers. I think she is fantastic with detailed human interactions. One of the things that I really love about her as well is I think she captures young narrators and young protagonists and characters really, really well in their emotional experiences, in their shifts and ups and downs, both in their positive attributes, but also the flaws they have. I'm inching close to the end of Disney's Land by Richard Snow, Walt Disney and the Invention of the Amusement Park That Changed the World. I think I have about 70 pages of this left, and I think is less than 3 hours of the audiobook, so I will probably finish this week. It has been interesting. I haven't loved every single part of this book. I think the designing aspect of the park was more interesting to me than the actual opening of the park, because it a lot of this book is about the business side of things, the management and the response for the park, and obviously it's a history of the park. There are definitely parts to this book that I found more interesting than others, but one of the things that I am realizing as I'm reading this is that the very opening of the park was disastrous. I definitely had the impression that Disneyland was successful from the start because of so much hype about it before it even opened. Because of all of the work that Disney himself had created, all of the PR that he'd done for the park long before it opened. But the actual opening days and the first days of the park running were completely disastrous. So it was really interesting to read about that and to see sort of how they tried to deal with the consequences of that. This is definitely going to be in my September wrap-up, as I'm closing in on the end with the audiobook for this. A book I have just started reading today is A Line Made by Walking by Sara Baume. I picked this up in a local thrift store in August, and I just felt like reading it immediately because it felt autumn-like to me. I've seen it everywhere on BookTube, I feel like. It is a book about a woman in her 20s who retreats from her urban life to the countryside, and I think a lot of it is about how she connects with nature. From what I remember from seeing reviews of this on BookTube, it is kind of depressing or darker in tone, and that is also, I think, one of the reasons that I'm thinking of this as an autumn appropriate book, but I just felt like I was in a mood for this type of book, so I've just started. I don't really have an impression of it yet. The last one I am currently reading, I'm reading for Invisible Cities, and that is Seeing Red by Lina, Meruane, translated by Magda. And funnily enough, this actually has a quote from Sara Baume on the back of this book. As I said, I am reading this for Invisible Cities. This month we are doing Chile and Palestine. This is a book about a woman who is at a party and she suddenly has a hemorrhage in her eye that leads her to become partially blind, and she is dealing with the blindness and traveling from the US, where she currently lives, back to Chile to be with her family during this particular moment in time. And we just see her trying to navigate this shift in her life and trying to come to sense with the blindness and to also try to understand why it's happening in the first place. It is really interesting to read this one as I'm also reading the book Their Plant Eyes, which I've mentioned in my previous currently reading video. I still haven't finished that one, but a lot of the things that I'm reading in this book about blindness, I'm just thinking about things I've read in Their Plant Eyes. The representation of blindness and sort of how the character is experiencing it, and what the author in Their Plant Eyes talks about in relation to literature and representation and conceptualizing blindness and sight, as well as the fact that this book uses a lot of sighted words, probably on purpose. So things like the character saying "I see" or "keep an eye on that," or things like that. So it's just sort of, I'm reading this with hyper awareness, I think, because of also reading that book, which I'm finding a really interesting reading experience. So I will talk more about this when I have finished it, but this has also been recommended by Roxy. I will link her 5 Chilean writers to read, or something like that is the title of her video. I will link it below, where she talks about other contemporary Chilean writers that she recommends. After this one, for Invisible Cities, I will move on to Minor Detail, which is going to be my book for Palestine. Both of these books work perfectly with Sean and Bert's, as well as Heather's Shorty September that they're doing this month. I decided kind of spontaneously to join in, and I've been sharing some things on Instagram for it. Basically, the idea is that you read short books in September. All of the books that I finished in the month so far have been short for Shorty September. And this one, as well as Minor Detail, also fits in perfectly with that challenge. I also want to look for some Chilean and Palestinian movies and music. If you have any recommendations, definitely let me know in the comments. But that is something I want to look into in the second half of this month. So that was all I wanted to share with you in this mid-month chat. I would love to know if you have any recent favorites, or if you're reading something for Invisible Cities or something else that you would like to share with me in the comments. If you have any recommendations, as I said, if you are working on something in terms of knitting or other crafting, I would love to chat about that as well. That was all I wanted to say in this rambly video. I hope you're doing well and you're taking care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon.